Miss Universe 2025 just wrapped up, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it might be the most controversial, chaotic, and downright messy pageant in the competition's 73-year history. We're talking about contestants staging walkouts, international incidents, accusations of rigging, insults being thrown on live television, and drama so intense that an actual president of a country had to release an official statement. What was supposed to be a glamorous celebration of beauty and culture turned into a geopolitical nightmare, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why people are saying this might be the beginning of the end for Miss Universe as we know it. Let's start from the beginning because the problems started way before the actual pageant night. Miss Universe 2025 was held in Mexico City, and from the moment contestants started arriving, there were issues. First, multiple delegates complained about their accommodations. We're not talking about minor complaints either. Some contestants said their hotel rooms were dirty, didn't have working air conditioning, and had safety concerns. Miss Universe is supposed to be this prestigious, glamorous event, and contestants were allegedly dealing with conditions that didn't match what they were promised. But the accommodation drama was just the warm-up. Things really started getting messy during the preliminary competition rounds. This is where contestants do their first walks in swimsuit and evening gown before the finals, and it's supposed to be a chance for judges to get a closer look at everyone. Except apparently, the judging process was a complete mess. Multiple sources from inside the competition said the scoring system was confusing, judges weren't given clear criteria, and there seemed to be favoritism happening behind the scenes. Some contestants who everyone thought would make the finals didn't even crack the top 20, while others who barely anyone had heard of were suddenly advancing. And this is where the first major controversy exploded. Miss Universe Panama, Italy Mora, didn't make the top 30 cut. Now, Italy was considered one of the favorites going into the competition. She had massive social media support, she looked incredible in all the preliminary rounds, and pageant experts were predicting she'd at least make top 10. So when she didn't even make top 30, people lost their minds. Her fans immediately started accusing the organization of rigging the competition. Hashtags about Miss Universe being fixed started trending worldwide. And Italy herself posted on social media with messages that seemed to suggest she wasn't surprised by what happened, implying she knew something shady was going on. But that was just one controversy. The bigger explosion came with what happened to Miss Universe Venezuela. Venezuela has the most Miss Universe wins in history after the USA. Venezuelan women are pageant royalty. So when their contestant also failed to make the finals, it became a national crisis in Venezuela. I'm not joking. The Venezuelan pageant organization released statements questioning the integrity of the competition. Venezuelan media was covering it like a political scandal. And then, and this is where it gets absolutely wild, the president of Venezuela actually released a statement about it. The Venezuelan president called the results suspicious and suggested there might be political motivations behind Venezuela not advancing. He implied that because of tensions between Venezuela and certain other countries, their contestant was deliberately kept out of the finals. Now whether you believe that or not, the fact that a head of state felt the need to comment on a beauty pageant tells you how serious this got. Miss Universe responded saying the judging was fair and that politics had nothing to do with it, but the damage was done. This was now an international incident. Meanwhile, backstage during the actual finals night, things were apparently falling apart. Multiple contestants later revealed that there was chaos behind the scenes. Hair and makeup artists were overwhelmed and couldn't get to everyone in time. Costume changes were rushed. Some contestants said they barely had time to change between segments. There were reports of contestants breaking down crying from the stress and pressure. And apparently, there were full-on arguments happening between contestants and organizers about the way things were being run. Then we get to the actual finals broadcast, and this is where viewers at home started seeing that something was off. The show was running long. Like really long. There were technical difficulties. The audio cut out multiple times. At one point, the teleprompter apparently stopped working and the hosts had to improvise. It looked unprofessional and messy for what's supposed to be one of the most prestigious pageants in the world. People watching were confused about what was happening, and social media was lighting up with comments about how disorganized everything seemed. But the real controversy came during the question and answer portion. This is where the top 5 contestants answer questions to demonstrate their intelligence and personality. Except this year, there were accusations that some contestants got easier questions than others. One contestant was asked a light question about her hobbies and passions. Another was asked a complex geopolitical question about international relations. People immediately noticed the disparity and started questioning whether this was intentional to help certain contestants and hurt others. And then there was the interpreter situation, which became its own massive scandal. For contestants who don't speak perfect English, Miss Universe provides translators so they can answer questions in their native language. But apparently, the translations this year were terrible. Like really, really bad. Some contestants' answers were mistranslated in ways that made them sound less intelligent or less coherent than they actually were. Miss Universe Chile later came out and said that her answer was completely mistranslated and that what the judges heard was not what she actually said. She posted the video with the correct translation, and the difference was shocking. What she actually said was beautiful and thoughtful. What got translated made her sound confused. This translation issue is huge because if judges are making decisions based on mistranslated answers, then the competition isn't fair. Multiple contestants are now saying they think they were eliminated because of translation errors, not because their answers were actually bad. And the Miss Universe organization has been mostly silent on this, which is making people even more suspicious that they know they messed up but don't want to admit it. Now let's talk about the winner, because that's where things get really heated. Miss Universe 2025 is Miss Denmark, Victoria Kjær. And look, by all accounts, Victoria is beautiful, poised, and seems like a lovely person. But her win has been absolutely controversial. First, people are pointing out that she's the first Miss Denmark to ever win Miss Universe, and Denmark isn't exactly known for pageant dominance. So her winning over countries with way stronger pageant histories raised eyebrows immediately. Second, there are allegations, and I want to be clear these are allegations not proven facts, that Denmark's national organization has connections to people high up in the Miss Universe organization. Some people are suggesting that business relationships and friendships influenced the outcome. There's no smoking gun proof of this, but enough people are making these claims that it's become part of the conversation. And when you combine that with all the other controversies around judging and scoring, it creates this cloud of suspicion over the entire result. Third, and this is where social media really exploded, people are comparing Victoria's performance to other contestants who didn't win and saying she shouldn't have beaten them. Videos are circulating comparing her runway walk to other contestants' walks. Comparing her evening gown presentation to others. Comparing her interview answers to others. And a lot of people are genuinely confused about how she won. Again, this isn't about Victoria as a person. It's about whether the judging was fair and whether the best contestant actually won. The backlash got so intense that Victoria had to address it in her first interviews as Miss Universe. She said she knows some people are unhappy with the result but that she won fair and square and she's proud to represent Denmark and the Miss Universe organization. She's handled the criticism with grace, which honestly makes people feel even worse for her because she's now in this position where her entire reign is going to be overshadowed by controversy that isn't even her fault. But here's where things went from controversial to absolutely explosive. During the post-pageant press conferences and interviews, some contestants started speaking out publicly about their experiences. And what they said was damning. Miss Universe Guatemala gave an interview where she detailed the poor treatment, the disorganization, and what she called preferential treatment for certain contestants. She didn't name names but implied that some delegates had advantages others didn't have. She said the competition didn't feel fair and that she regretted participating. Then Miss Universe Argentina went even further. She posted a long statement on Instagram basically saying the competition was corrupt. She said she witnessed things backstage that made her lose faith in the integrity of Miss Universe. She said certain contestants had advanced knowledge of what to expect while others were kept in the dark. She said the judging seemed predetermined and that some judges had clear favorites before the competition even started. She ended her post by saying she's considering legal action and encouraging other contestants to speak up. And that's when the walkout happened. This didn't happen during the televised finals, but in the days after, multiple contestants who had stayed in Mexico for post-pageant obligations literally walked out and went home early. They refused to participate in the winners' tour and the scheduled appearances. At least 5 contestants, maybe more, just left. They released statements saying they couldn't in good conscience continue to support an organization that they feel is corrupt and dishonest. This is unprecedented. You don't see pageant contestants publicly rebelling like this. The Miss Universe organization tried to do damage control. They released a statement saying they're proud of the competition, that everything was conducted fairly, and that they won't tolerate false accusations against their integrity. But that statement just made things worse because it came across as dismissive of legitimate concerns. They didn't address any of the specific allegations. They didn't apologize for the technical difficulties or the translation issues. They just said everything was fine, which nobody believed. Then the sponsors started getting involved. Several major sponsors of Miss Universe released statements saying they're monitoring the situation and reviewing their partnership. In business terms, that's basically code for we're thinking about pulling out if this doesn't get cleaned up. And if sponsors leave, that's a financial disaster for Miss Universe. The whole organization depends on sponsorship money. So suddenly, this wasn't just a PR problem, it was becoming a financial crisis. Meanwhile, pageant fans and experts are having a field day analyzing everything. YouTube channels dedicated to pageants are posting multi-hour breakdown videos, examining every moment of the competition. Pageant forums are filled with thousands of pages of discussion. People are pulling up receipts, comparing this year to previous years, documenting every controversy. The level of scrutiny is intense, and the more people dig, the more questionable things they find. For example, someone noticed that the scores for the preliminary rounds were never officially published. Usually, Miss Universe releases at least some scoring data so fans can understand how contestants were evaluated. But this year, nothing. The organization said the scores were confidential, which immediately made people suspicious. Why would you hide the scores unless you don't want people to see how the judging actually broke down? It feeds into the narrative that something shady happened. There's also controversy around the judging panel itself. One of the judges has business connections to Denmark. Another judge has been accused of having personal relationships with handlers of certain contestants. Again, these are allegations circulating on social media and pageant forums, not proven facts. But the Miss Universe organization hasn't addressed them or provided transparency about the judging process, which just makes people more suspicious. Then there's the whole issue of the Miss Universe owner and organization structure. Miss Universe was recently purchased by a Thai businesswoman and a Mexican businessman. They've made changes to how the competition is run, including moving it to Mexico and changing some of the traditional formats. Some people think these changes are good and modernizing the pageant. Others think they're destroying what made Miss Universe special. And now with all these controversies, people are questioning whether the new ownership knows what they're doing or if they're in over their heads. The cultural and political dimensions of this controversy are also fascinating. Pageants like Miss Universe are weird because they're simultaneously about beauty and also about national pride. When a woman wins Miss Universe, she's not just representing herself, she's representing her entire country. So when people feel like the competition was unfair, it becomes about more than just one person being cheated. It becomes about their country being disrespected. That's why you had the president of Venezuela getting involved. That's why entire nations are upset about this. And the timing of all this is particularly bad for Miss Universe because pageants have been losing cultural relevance for years. Fewer people watch them. Younger generations don't care as much about them. There are legitimate questions about whether pageants are even relevant in modern society. So Miss Universe needs to be putting on flawless, controversy-free events to maintain whatever relevance they still have. Instead, they just had the most chaotic disaster of a pageant in recent memory. This might accelerate the decline of pageants as a cultural institution. What's really interesting is how social media has changed how these controversies play out. 20 years ago, if there was shady judging at Miss Universe, contestants might complain privately but they'd never go public. The pageant world was small and insular and you didn't burn bridges. But now, contestants can go straight to Instagram or TikTok and tell their side of the story to millions of people. They can post evidence. They can organize with other contestants. The power dynamic has shifted. Organizations can't just control the narrative anymore. And the evidence that's coming out on social media is damning. Contestants are posting behind-the-scenes videos showing the chaos and poor conditions. They're sharing screenshots of messages with organizers that contradict official statements. They're collaborating to create timelines of events that paint a picture of systemic problems. It's like a crowdsourced investigation. And the Miss Universe organization is being absolutely overwhelmed by it. Every time they try to deny something, 5 contestants post receipts proving it's true. The contestant who's emerged as the unofficial leader of this rebellion is Miss Universe Philippines, Chelsea Manalo. She hasn't been as vocal as some others, but she's been liking and sharing posts that criticize the organization. And in the pageant world, Miss Philippines is always one of the favorites with massive fan support. So her implicit support of the complaints gives them legitimacy. If Chelsea came out and directly accused Miss Universe of corruption, it would be absolutely nuclear. So far, she's been more subtle, but people are watching to see if she goes further. There are also whispers about legal action. Multiple contestants have mentioned lawyers and reviewing contracts. If even one contestant sues Miss Universe for breach of contract or fraud or whatever legal theory applies, it could open the floodgates. Discovery in a lawsuit would mean Miss Universe would have to turn over internal documents, emails, communications that might prove the allegations true. That's probably why the organization is trying so hard to smooth things over, because a lawsuit is their worst-case scenario. From Miss Universe Denmark Victoria's perspective, this has to be absolutely awful. She's achieved what should be the pinnacle of her pageant career, and instead of celebrating, she's defending her win and dealing with people questioning whether she deserves it. She's going to spend her entire reign dealing with this controversy. Every appearance she makes, people will bring it up. Every interview will include questions about the drama. Her Miss Universe experience is forever tainted by circumstances largely outside her control. The other contestants who placed in the top 5 are also in weird positions. Miss Universe Nigeria was first runner-up. And her fans are saying she should have won and that she was robbed. Miss Universe Mexico was in the top 5 and performed incredibly, but now people are saying she only got that far because the pageant was in Mexico and there was home country advantage. Nobody's win or placement is being taken at face value. Everything is being questioned. Looking forward, Miss Universe has some serious decisions to make. They can continue denying everything and hope the controversy blows over. But that seems unlikely given how many contestants are speaking out and how much evidence is circulating. Or they can acknowledge problems, promise reforms, maybe even offer some kind of apology or compensation to contestants who feel wronged. That would be the smarter move, but it would also be admitting they screwed up, which organizations hate doing. There's also the question of whether this damages Miss Universe permanently. Will contestants from major pageant countries refuse to compete next year? Will sponsors pull out? Will viewership decline even further? Will the best women who would normally compete for Miss Universe go to other pageants instead? These are real possibilities. Miss Universe has survived controversies before, But this feels different because it's so widespread and so many contestants are publicly rebelling. The pageant community is also having a broader conversation about reforms that are needed across all pageants, not just Miss Universe. Better treatment of contestants. Transparent judging. Clear scoring systems. Protection against exploitation. Fair compensation, because a lot of pageants don't pay contestants despite making money off them. This controversy is shining a light on problems that exist throughout the industry, and there's momentum building for change. What's sad is that pageants at their best can be empowering platforms for women. They can provide scholarships, career opportunities, platforms to advocate for causes. Many women have used pageant success as a springboard to amazing careers. But when pageants are run poorly or corruptly, when contestants are mistreated and exploited, it undermines all of that. It turns what should be a positive experience into something traumatic. And that's what apparently happened to many contestants at Miss Universe 2025. As of right now, the full story is still developing. More contestants are speaking out every day. More evidence is being shared on social media. Investigations by media outlets are underway. The Miss Universe organization is in crisis mode trying to manage the situation. And millions of pageant fans worldwide are watching to see what happens next. Will there be real accountability? Will anything change? Or will this just be another scandal that fades away until the same problems happen again next year? What we know for certain is that Miss Universe 2025 will be remembered as the pageant that imploded. The pageant where contestants walked out, where presidents got involved, where the entire system was exposed as potentially corrupt. Whether this leads to meaningful reform or the death of Miss Universe as we know it remains to be seen. But one thing's clear, nothing will ever be quite the same again in the world of beauty pageants after what went down in Mexico City.